I want to talk about the days I went through anxiety attacks. And when I used to go through, first it was just a general anxiety in my life, just a tremendous anxiety. And it was a struggle to get through each and every day. Because I was a very analytical type person, like most people. Very analytical, looking at things, trying to understand things, trying to come up with answers, you look for hope. You know, in a very real way, you're looking for hope. And you're looking for a positiveness in life. And some kind of assurance that everything is going to be okay. You look for proof. And the more you look for proof that everything is going to be okay, the less you find it. And it seems like the harder you look, the less you find even less. All the evidence goes contrary to the fact that it's going to be okay. The world is messed up and anything can happen to us at any time. You could be walking down the street and get hit by a car or hit by a stray bullet. I'm reading stories in the paper about some guy who was hit by a bullet fired from somebody like who had fired the shot 2 blocks away. He got hit by the bullet and killed. Person walking down the street, a car goes out of control. Boom, they get pinned to under that car for hours and they suffer and suffer. Wind up losing a limb or something, you know. And you look at it and you say, God, just bad things can happen. People suddenly drop dead. You know, they have an undiagnosed aneurysm in the brain. And just things can happen to people. I've had this happen, you know, at work, where a couple of coworkers died within months of each other suddenly. They didn't seem to have any kind of illnesses, and suddenly they're just dead, you know. So it just looks like everything is just so terrible and terrible. And when I was going through anxiety attacks, it's like that's the type of stuff you just think about all the time. Like, oh God, it's just terrible, terrible. And everything is darkness and just terribleness and just, oh. And you need to feel inspired to keep going. To just get up in the morning. You need something. To get up, to go to work, to deal with everything that happens every day. So, you know, when somebody like me comes along and starts talking about thinking positive and thinking about success and looking at things, you know, people react negatively to that. Many people react very negative to any kind of positive thinking because they think that it makes sense to think that positive thinking is to defend a lie. It makes sense to think that. All is suffering, and the truth is suffering. And being miserable is the normal thing and the natural thing and the order of things. And we should just understand that and just suffer. And there's a part of me that says no. No. You know, even when the Buddhists say things like life is suffering, they don't really mean that that's the way things have to be. There's a positiveness in that way of thinking, in that way of looking at things. Life is suffering. It is suffering. It's full of a lot of suffering, a lot of misery, a lot of things that happen that we don't like. Things that distress us. And when we feel stressed out, one thing we want to do is have some relief from that stress. You know, it's just like, there's just a natural way in which things are. That if, for example, if you're cold, you try to go somewhere warm or you put on warm clothing. If you're hot, you take off the extra clothing you have and go somewhere that's cool. So when you are stressed out, you just want to get relief from that stress. And sometimes the way of getting relief, you know, other than drugs and things like that, is to indulge in a fantasy. The fantasy of a perfect world. A world where there are no problems and nothing ever goes wrong and everybody's nice to each other. You know, we can indulge in that fantasy for a while. And even if it's only for 15 minutes or 2 hours or whatever, if we could be watching a movie or watching one of my videos or something, whatever it takes for a moment, you feel good. And then the movie is over or the video is over or whatever, and then you have to face the real world, the world where people are rude. So, you know, the idea that positive thinking is to defend the lie seems to be true. But I don't think it is. I think that the world is what you decide to think it is. That's not really magic thinking, but in a way it is. I even admit it. It's a kind of magic thinking. That's the kind of thing that's frowned on. But, you know, things happen. I have to deal with, for example, being diabetic, dealing with certain things, certain complications that come up and stuff that happens. But I keep a positive attitude. I remember in the first days when I went going back to the doctor and I had to start taking insulin. I kept a positive attitude. I remember, you know, always looking at things and having a sense of humor about it. First time I had to take an injection, you know, for those of you who have never had to inject yourself with anything, can you imagine what it's like the first time you had to stick yourself with a needle? I had to have a positive attitude about that, and that helped get me through. I think my positive attitude helped me to get better control of my blood sugar. It helped me to deal with the doctors more and everything else. It really improved my life. Because positive thinking is really not just so much constantly telling yourself a bunch of, it's not a matter of lying to yourself. Like saying, like if you find that your wife is cheating on you, you say, oh no, she's not really cheating on me. She just, and you rearrange it in your mind. No. Say, yeah, she did that, but, this may be an opportunity for me to get out of this relationship that's not working for me. You have to find a way to frame things and look at things from an optimistic perspective. And when you do, you will follow that frame that you've created. Because that's what I do. I think to myself, with my health, I'm going to do everything I can to take care of myself. I'm not going to focus on every negative thing that I hear and every horror story. Because when when you're diabetic, all of a sudden you start paying attention. At the very beginning of every horror story of people getting things amputated and people going blind and all that. Now, you do what you can to take care of yourself so that those things don't happen. Or at least you can delay it as long as possible. A positive attitude is a positive outlook. To have a positive worldview. To have a positive Weltanschauung. I got to use that German word. And that's what it is. I'm about having a positive outlook on life. Yes, bad things will happen. There will be tragedies. There will be things that will happen. There will be bills to pay. There will be, poop to clean up. When your dog poops or your child poops, you got to take care of that. When, some rude person is going to bump into you. But sometimes if you focus on that, you don't pay attention to the nice person. Someone who's very kind to you. Sometimes our minds become like filters. Filters where we only see the negative things. So we see the baby's poop, but we don't pay attention to the moment when the baby is laughing at something and that laughter is, just lighting up the whole room. We don't see that. We only see the poop, And sometimes that's what I mean when I talk about positive thinking. Yes, our minds will create filters. You tend to see more of what you focus on. It is like with something that Wayne Dyer said, and I agree with him 100%. And I know this from experience. What you focus on in your life is what expands. If you focus on negative, you see more of it. It's not just magic, some new age magical stuff. It's reality. And it has to do with the way your brain processes the incoming information. If you focus on positive things, you see more of that. And you participate more in that. And you get more involved in that. And your spirits are lifted. And you feel inspired. And that's just the process. That's the way things happen. That's something I know from experience. I used to be depressed. I used to feel anxious all the time. And I don't feel those ways. And I do not want to go back to that. So yeah, I'm going to be an advocate for positive thinking. And if people want to leave negative comments about that, fine. But I'm not going to focus on that. That's just a fact.